If you're ever in the middle of writing a book at any point in the process, the drafting, the revising, editing, and you're thinking to yourself, this feels so out of control, it should be more organized than this. I bet, authors who have been doing this for a while have their process down. I am just here to tell you that is not the case. This revision right now on my mystery novel feels, despite my best efforts at just getting myself organized, like a few weeks ago I printed out the manuscript, I separated it into the 4 parts that I've, kind of like the way I've structured the book, and I had all my colored pens and I was coming up with, I was ready to go, and I have been working on it, you guys. I mean, just a little bit most days over the last couple of weeks. I have been working on this draft in the manuscript on paper. And it just still feels like I'm trying to juggle 8 balls of jello. I cannot think of a better metaphor than that. That is the exact feeling I have, like it's all fallen between my fingers and I can't catch it all. And that's okay, because this is just what it feels like sometimes, I think, when you're writing a book. There is no perfect process where everything slots neatly into place and you just, from your conception of the idea to finished product, it's just this nice, simple step-by-step thing. It just doesn't work that way. I've said this many times before in the past, but for me, specifically as an author, this particular novel is ambitious. And I feel like sometimes it's kind of pretentious to say my book is ambitious, but for me it's ambitious because it's the first time I've attempted writing outside of kidlit, this being an adult novel. It's ambitious in that it has way too many POVs, like double digits. Why? And it's ambitious in that it's a kind of a locked room mystery that takes place in a very short time period, and there are so many moving parts, so many things to keep track of, what's going on over the course of this kind of 24 hours that these characters are together. It's just a lot, again, for me. I've never attempted anything like this before. And I'm really telling myself on a daily basis, I am not in a hurry. I'm not in a rush to start querying this. I'm not in a rush to get this published. I have a full 96,000 word draft, and as much work as it needs, it is a cohesive story, so that's something. This is the stage where I have laid out all the puzzle pieces on the table and turned them face up. And the revision is just going to take a while as I try to piece it all together and find the actual real picture. So here's what I've done. I think I mentioned this the last time I vlogged about this project, but I started with part 4. I've only been basically working on part 4 because it needs the most work by far. With every chapter that goes by, I can tell by the way I was writing that I was just rushing to get to the end. I was trying to get all the ideas out and just get to the end. And there's nothing wrong with that. I can always clean up the prose. But I won't lie, for me, and I just made a short about this today. By the way, if you're not following if you're not seeing the Ask an Author shorts that I've been making where I answer a question about writing or publishing every day, I will link to that down below. But the short I filmed today was about self-editing, editing as you go, as you draft, and getting caught in that loop. And I've talked about this a lot before. For me, it turns into a way of procrastination out of fear. I'm afraid I can't pull this idea off, and therefore rather than moving forward towards the end, I convince myself that editing chapters 5 through 10 over and over and over and over and over again is what I need to do right now. But I have also learned from experience with this book, with the first NaNoWriMo version of this book that I finished in 2020, 2020. What I learned there is that when I do too rough of a draft, like a 0 draft where I just completely throw voice and tone and style out the window and I am just trying to tell the story and get it all out there, that works insofar as I get the mechanics out. But the huge issue is that I really start to lose my love of the story. If I'm not finding at least some of the voice early on in that first draft, I lose interest in the book. And that's a hard thing to balance. I think a lot of authors doing it that way would work really well for them. Like thinking of it as a layer, you know, writing your draft in layers. Like here's the layer where I just structurally lay out this is what happens. And here is the layer where I start, you know, adding more world building details, say. And then here is the layer where I start to find the voice and the style. I think that can be really effective, and a lot of people would probably, that would be a great process for them. For me, there's just this tricky balance of like, I can't focus 100% on voice and tone in the very first draft because that will slow me down. That is where I get caught in the self-editing. But if I don't have at least some spots in the story where the writing is making me smile, and it's like, oh, in these couple of lines, I can see the bigger picture of what I want this book to ultimately be, then I start to lose motivation. And I only got through that first draft of this mystery novel by like sheer force of will. It was not a fun experience by the end. So yeah, that was, like I said, November 2020, that was NaNoWriMo when I finished that 0 draft. And then I took some time away from it, and then I went through and really did a big rewrite. And what I have now is a messy first draft where I can see the promise and the voice that I want in certain parts. Definitely more so in the first half than the second half, and the last few chapters in particular are still feeling honestly pretty 0 draft. I ran out of steam. I was just like, here's a summary of how it all wrapped up. But you can just like, it's like you can see how the car ran out of gas and just kind of like ran off the road slowly and tragically. So I'm trying to keep my patience with that and remind myself that it's only the last few chapters that feel that way, and that a lot of the book really is something. There are certain scenes that I would be proud to show, or I would at least feel okay with showing beta readers. I have made progress on it. Another reason I think I'm feeling a little like I need to step back and take a breather from where I am at the very end of this revision right now is that I think I've gotten all I can out of the notes I've made in part 4, which are extensive. I mean, I'm taking up all my blank space to write down things that I need to fix. It's opened my eyes to a few key things that I need to go back into the first 3 parts and do a better job of adding or just revising, and certain clues like a weapon and an incident that happens early on that affects all of the characters and a particular room in this house. I know now that I've done part 4, I know I have a more solid idea of how those reveals are going to come about, but there's layers to the reveals. Like they are clues with layers, if that makes sense. Like first you see the weapon, and then you learn something about the weapon, and then another character learns something different about the weapon or reveals some way the weapon was used that you weren't expecting. Again, trying to share details without oversharing too much of my plot here. And I know which scenes to go back and add those pieces in. And I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, I've done a ton of work on part 4. Now it's time to go back to the beginning where I read my opening pages and I'm like, oh yeah, this I can write. This is actually decent writing, okay. And go through in order once again. And it's hard to ignore that feeling that, oh God, I'm going backwards. I'm going back to the beginning again, even though I started with part 4. Of course I have to go back to the beginning at some point, but that's what I mean when I say every process is just going to feel messy at some point. And we just have to, the way I'm dealing with this feeling of this is out of my control is just reminding myself, like, it's never a step-by-step, revise chapter 1, revise chapter 2, done, revise chapter 3, done, revise chapter 4, done. It just rarely works that way. This is, again, the whole puzzle pieces out on the table. We're going to be doing this little corner, and then maybe we'll see this little middle part, and that'll come together. And, you know, it's going to happen out of order. That doesn't mean it's out of control, and that doesn't mean it's going slow, and it certainly doesn't mean I'm going backwards. Okay, that was a whole lot of rambling. So, okay, the other thing that I had kind of a breakthrough on, and it's making me excited to go back actually to the very beginning, is that I had a big realization about my primary protagonist. I have a lot of POVs in this book, but I have mentioned before that my main character, her name is Enid. She does get the majority of the page time from her POV. And I felt like I knew her really well as a person. If you had asked me that last week, I would have said, yeah, because I have a ton of backstory on her. I know, I mean, there's just so much. I know the timeline of her entire life. She's like in her late 30s at the start of this book. I know a ton about her, but I can't even remember what brought this to my mind, but I had this kind of realization about her and her relationship with her parents, and a thing that bonded them as a family, a shared passion of theirs that I cannot, it's almost like one of those things where it was there the whole time and I only just now saw it. It fit perfectly with who she is as a person, who her parents were as people, where they live, and probably most importantly, the entire theme of this book, which is just so awesome. And I can already imagine all the ways I can incorporate this into all of her scenes, but I do need to go through on paper and revise for that. And the other kind of revelation I had about this character is this. I know a lot of people like casting their characters, as in, if there were going to be a movie or a show version of my book, here is who would play which character. And I think that can actually be really valuable, not so much in like, I think sometimes people use it just to be like, for physical descriptions, they look like this person, but that doesn't, the physical, like the way they look doesn't matter so much to me as like how an actor would portray them and which actor could really bring the way I see their personality to life. I don't do that very often, and I think it's actually probably a really helpful thing, because I found myself thinking about a particular actress that I really like, and I just haven't seen her in anything in a while. And all of a sudden I was like, she could play Enid, because she has played women who are quirky and funny, but always with this undertone of like darkness. And I don't mean evil darkness. I mean almost like a really desperate sadness, always there as an undercurrent. And she's so good at that. And I was like, that's Enid. With this particular actress, it's not that Enid is identical to the characters this actress has played, but I can just see this actress bringing Enid to life the way she exists in my mind. And I think that having that in my head as I go through this from page one more time is really going to help me with her internal monologue, with her dialogue, with everything. And I'm starting to think maybe I need to go and consider my other characters that way, like who could best bring them to life. And then maybe I'll start better visualizing these scenes, because in a lot of the scenes the mechanics are now in place enough where I really want to focus more on that, the voice and the style and the dialogue, and making sure all of that is sharp and stylistically what I want it to be. So is that something you guys do? Do you cast your characters, or how do you when you imagine your characters, can you just completely imagine them from scratch? I have definitely had characters like that in the past, where I don't need an actor. I don't need this particular, method to help me envision them, but it doesn't always happen with all of my characters. Sometimes I know a lot about them, but they're still kind of muddy in my head. And for me, doing this just with Enid, it brought me a lot of clarity. So that is where things are right now. We are finishing up a last sprint. I'm on Lisa's live stream right now, and I have a little bit more to say, but I will save that for the end of the vlog. So to help me with that whole, this revision feels out of control kind of feeling I'm struggling with, I find it helps to like put everything in one place, and a whiteboard is really great for that. So I went to my whiteboard and I divided it up. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 along the top of the whiteboard. That stands for part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 of my novel, just so structurally I kind of generally know where I am. And then along the left side, I listed 4 of the biggest kind of clues that I need to do some work on. And I had to keep it really vague because I knew I'd be filming this, but I wrote passages, cellar, knife, and statues. And then what I did is I just kind of went through the notes I had been taking and started writing down ideas of, you know, in part 3 with the knife, I know I need to hint this, so I write it there. In part 4 with the cellar, there's one big reveal that I haven't included yet, and that is this. Just very generally helping me figure out where I'm going to peel back the layers of these various clues. And then as I go through my more careful read through from page 1, I will be paying more attention to these part by part and seeing if I can find the best scenes to work these in. So that's gonna be it for this vlog. I am gonna continue to just truck away at this. It's gonna take a while. It's a long process, and right now it feels messy, but that is just part of it. So yeah, that's how things are going for me. And I also wanted to let you guys know that the reason I did not vlog last week is because I was actually really focused on finishing a presentation for a webinar that I'm gonna be doing next Wednesday. It's for the Children's Book Insider, and I will link all the information down below if you want to attend, but the presentation is how to pitch to trends while still writing the book of your heart. Don't write to trends, pitch to trends is the basic gist of it. And I think it's going to be really fun. It will be a live presentation with a Q&A at the end, but they are going to be recording it, and they put all of their webinars up for purchase afterwards. So if you're not able to attend live, you can still check it out later, and check out all of their webinars because I've watched quite a few of them and they are great, highly informative, really well done. So yeah, it would be great to see you guys there. And if not, let me know how your writing is going, how your revising is going, how everything is going with your projects and where things stand. And I will see you guys next week with another video. Bye.